Do you own your personal residence in your own name? Well, in this video, I'm going to show you what you can do about that to get it out of your own name so you don't fall victim to a burglary like what happened to Bobby Portis, Patrick Mahone, and Travis Kelce when they were out of town. All right, let's get started. Okay, so here's the issue. If you've been watching the news, there's been 2 NBA players and 2 NFL players whose home was burglarized when they were out of town. Now, how did people know they're out of town? Well, social media, of course. And so if you're an individual who likes to post, videos about your family vacations when you're traveling to Mexico or Europe or wherever it is, what you're doing is you're sending a signal to any criminal element out there that, hey, this house is unprotected. There is no one living there. And I know this happens because I had a friend who was doing the same thing. They went down to Mexico. She posted some videos that she was down in Cabo having a great time. Well, she came back and she found that her house had been burglarized. Now, how did that happen? Well, somebody just broke in, again, because they knew no one was living there. So here's the thing. I sat down with her and I explained to her, I said, what you need to do if you want to continue to let people know when you're not in town is make sure that that property's not in your own name. Get your house out of your name. So if they did try to research where you live, your name is not going to be associated with that property. Now, it astounds me that these NBA players, the NFL players, do not have better information from their high-powered attorneys and their agents telling them when you buy a house, do not take title in your own name because there are people out there who are going to want to take advantage of that because you're such high profile. But it's not limited to them. It's also us. We want to protect what we've built up, what we have in our house from an invasion, from a burglary when we're gone. Here's how you do it. What you need to do is set up a privacy trust. So what we'll do is we create this trust right here. So here's our privacy trust. And that privacy trust is not going to have our name on it, of course. Okay, we're going to come up with any name we want for this trust document because the trust does not get filed anywhere. So that's what's key here. This document is a private document. So let's assume we're going to call this the Blessings Trust. So I'm going to set up the Blessings Trust. Now, when I create this trust, let's say you're down here, you're the owner of this house. We have John, and John owns his house, and he sets up the Blessings Trust. Now, the key here is we want to get the property out of John's name because when John goes out of town and he jumps on Facebook and he posts this great video, he and his family have an awesome time in Rome. Somebody sees that and they go, "Oh, John's out of town. I'm going to look up John's name, find out where he lives, and then I'm going to go visit his house. Maybe I'll stay there for a few days while I'm burglarizing his house." There's no rush because no one's living there. So what John needs to do is get that property out of John's name. So when somebody looks up his name, they do not see John listed on title. Now, this strategy is so simple, and I don't know why more people don't do it. It's something we've been doing here at Anderson for over 18 years to help our clients create privacy. All you need to do is you create this trust. And then what John's going to do, he's going to be listed as the beneficiary of his trust. He'll be down here as the beneficiary. That means he's the owner of the trust. Now, this is key. This trust is a private document. So I want you to remember this. It's private, so no one can see the terms of the trust. That's what makes this strategy so effective. So John's the beneficiary. That means he's the owner of the trust. And it also means that John controls the trust. The way the trust is set up is that John has all the control over the trust and its assets. We leave that to the beneficiary. The reason why we do that is because I'm about to show you how the trust is structured from a trustee standpoint. You see, the trustee that we appoint to on this trust cannot be John. We can't put John up here as the trustee of the trust because when you transfer title to this house into the Blessings Trust, the way it's going to be transferred is from John as grantor to, if we did John as trustee, John as trustee of the, just put BT, Blessings Trust. Now, obviously, anybody's going to be able to see that. So what we want to ensure is that John's name is no longer associated as an owner of this property from a public record standpoint. See, when we put it in the trust, John's on the trust, so he still owns the house. But from a public record standpoint, what can you find online? I don't want John's name tied to this property any longer because I don't want people to be able to go and look up where he lives. So we have to use a nominee trustee. So instead of using John, we're going to use, typically I like to use attorneys. I've been on probably close to 20,000 trusts over the past 18 to 20 years where I've listed myself as an initial trustee. Now, I've done that for the protection of our clients. So when they create one of these trusts, they appoint Clint Coons, Esquire. I like to put on the fact I'm an attorney on there. I'll explain in a minute. So I put on there Clint Coons, Esquire, trustee. Okay, so we don't have John on there. We have Clint Coons as trustee of the Blessings Trust. So here's what John's doing. He's transferring title to his house from his name to my name as trustee of this trust. Okay, now before you drop off and you say, this is ridiculous, I would never trust Clint to be the trustee of my trust. I don't even know who this guy is. Yeah, he's got some YouTube videos out there and he's an attorney, but attorneys, you can't trust them. I get it, right? You have this natural reluctance to want to take your name off of title. But how about if I shared with you this? When you take your name off of title and you put it into a nominee name, understand that that trustee has zero control over the trust. Okay, so you draft a trust document. You should review your trust document to see exactly what the trustee can do. So in the trust that we create, the trustee has no control. More importantly, with this strategy, the trustee automatically resigns. So what I do is I automatically resign my position as the initial trustee after the title's recorded, and then I appoint John as the successor trustee, and that's in the trust document. So Clint's on there for a microsecond in time just to record the deed into the name of the trust. Clint Coons Esquire as trustee of the Blessings Trust. I'm off. Now John's listed as the trustee because I've resigned, but no one knows that. Reason no one knows is because they can't see this document. This is a private document. John's now the trustee and he's the beneficiary. Now, if you're going to do this, it's important to note that you need to make sure that the trustee provides John a trustee deed. So this is something that's critical whenever you use this strategy. Your nominee trustee has to provide a trustee deed. And what that trustee deed does for John, it states that Clint has resigned and that he's transferred the trusteeship to John. So if any time in the future, John wants to have his name appear as the trustee of the trust, all he has to do is go down and record that document. So you get the anonymity. I hope you can see this. Now, the other portion about this as well, do not make this major mistake that I see people who try to implement similar types of strategies make when they set up this type of trust. Number one, this is not a land trust. You cannot use a land trust for this strategy. If you try to use a land trust for this strategy and not a residence trust, you could jeopardize your homestead exclusion. That's the first mistake. Now, the second mistake that people make is not using a virtual business address. I'm just going to put VBA for your tax statement. Okay, for tax statement. Okay, that is key. You do not want your tax statement still sent to your name at your personal residence address. Use a virtual business address or a PO box. Now, we provide a virtual business address for our clients in Nevada. So people, if they look at the property, they see it used to be in John's name. Now it's in Clint Coons' name. It's not going back to John for the tax statements. It's coming to our address, and then we forward it on to John. So then he, receives his property tax statements semi-annually or whenever they're shipped out. So that way it breaks any connection back to John. So this is important as well when you're doing this. I don't think the criminals would look that deep into the property tax statements, or just going to look online, run John's name through a database. Maybe they run it through DataTree to see if he's listed as a property owner on any homes. I'm sure that's what they did with these individuals. Well, professional athletes sometimes like to get out there and say, hey, check out my crib. Look how great it is. This is where I live in Arizona. That can be a problem. But as long as you're not doing that, you're not giving away any of the secrets. And so ideally, what you should be doing is buying in a privacy trust, or possibly even buying in a Wyoming limited liability company that offers anonymity. Both of these, I think, are important strategies for protecting the anonymity of your personal residence. Either strategy works. Now, the other benefit that comes from this, so if you set this up for anonymity, saying, hey, I want to make sure that somebody doesn't see that I'm out of town, they burglarize my house. Great, I get it. But by doing this one strategy, you're also going to get a secondary benefit, which I think is equally as important, and that is personal judgment. Let's assume that you're sued individually and somebody gets a judgment against you. So this judgment then's entered against you for, let's say it's entered against you for $300,000. Well, if you've taken this house out of your name then that personal judgment that is typically recorded in the county in which you live, it's not going to attach to that property. Meaning that when you have a personal judgment from a personal creditor and they record the judgment attaches to real estate that you own in your name. So wherever your name appears on title to a piece of property, boom, that property just got liened by that judgment. So the secondary benefit of this strategy is now you're getting protection not only from the burglars that are looking up your personal residence address, but also from possible judgment creditors, because they can record their judgments and this house is no longer in John's name. So if they recorded it, let's say he lives in Duncan County, they record it in Duncan County, the judgment goes onto the Duncan County's database, looks for John. John's not listed on a piece of property, it just sits there, doesn't do anything. Because title to the property is held under Clint Coons, Esquire, trustee of the Blessings Trust. Recently, we had a client, similar situation. We'd set up this type of trust. I had resigned my position. So we had the trust created for the client. It had their house in it. I was initially listed as their trustee, and then I resigned, and we listed our client here. She was listed now as the successor trustee. Okay, so where am I going with this? Well, recently she called up and she said, listen, I want to sell my property now that's held in this trust. And of course, she's down here also as the beneficiary of this trust. I said, great, there's two things we can do here. I can resign. I've already resigned my position. You could file the trustee's deed and show yourself as now trustee of this trust, which then you lose your anonymity. Or how about this? How about you reappoint me as trustee of your trust? Because this is the power she has as the beneficiary down here. She can appoint a new trustee. So she would resign. So what we did is we drafted a resignation for her. She resigned and she reappointed me as trustee. So now I'm the trustee of the trust and I signed off on it again that I was willing to serve as the trustee of this trust. Then we closed on the sale of the property. So now when the property was sold, it never hit her name. Okay, it was sold in the name of the trust. The proceeds were paid to the trust. She had a bank account set up under the trust name with an EIN. I didn't touch it. Money went right in, and she was able then to keep those proceeds from ever coming to her directly. That's important as well, because let's assume that she did have a judgment out there. At that point in time, when you changed the trustee back to her, that judgment would have attached to that property, because her name was now listed there and they would have pulled those funds out of escrow and paid them to the creditor. But by using this strategy, and I assume she didn't have one, but let's say she did, then it would have prevented it. Hey, these types of strategies are things that people should be using to protect their assets. And it amazes me how many times I hear a story from someone saying, wow, I lost this. And I thought, it would have been so easy. Just one simple structure can provide a tremendous amount of protection. And that's what we're looking for here when we create these types of trusts. Your personal residence, it means a lot to you. There's a lot of emotional attachment to it. You have a lot of equity probably built up in that property. The last thing you need is somebody to burglarize it when you're gone, or someone to try to drop a judgment on your property and freeze up that equity so you can't sell or refi without paying off that potential creditor. Listen, guys, if you found a lot of information, you like this video, be sure to hit the like button. And if you know there's other investors out there that need this type of information because they have not yet seen my channel, go ahead and share it out. Let them know, hey, this is how you should go about protecting your personal residence. Love you to do that. And if you want to set up a strategy session to see how we can help you set up a residence trust, go into the show notes. This comes up a lot. I get a lot of questions. People say, well, how do I set up a strategy session with you? And I think, did you not hear it? In the show notes, there's a link, free strategy session with us. All you got to do is go in there, click on the link. It'll bring you to a page, sign up for a free strategy session. We can discuss this, show you how to protect your other real estate investments or other investments in general, and also reduce your taxes. Take care.